friends, welcome back to Bear Hobbies, and today is the 9th of May, Victory Day for the Russian people. That is the day that's celebrated in Russia as victory over the fascist forces in the Second World War, or as they call it, the Great Patriotic War. So we're going to look at the T-34, T-34-85 specifically. We're going to go through a little bit of the history of the tank, but not that much. We're going to go through Sturm Berlin, and we're going to have a look at the model, and also we're going to have a look at a little bit of the T-90, and I'll explain the correlation between them. Hope you enjoy the video. So the T-34 is one of the most famous tanks of World War II, put together with the American Shermans, German Tigers and Panthers, and probably arguably one of the most decisive weapons of the Second World War. To the Russians, they call this tank Tank Goroi, tank hero. It is that famous, and actually it has a heroic symbolism for the Russian people in that it was a saviour for them. Okay, very briefly, this is the improved version of the 76 with the bigger turret, the 85mm gun, and this three-man turret allows them to work more effectively, previously the commander being a loader as well. Production started in 1944, and this tank serves all over the world, even in the post-war world. So let's have a look now at the battle and combat history. Okay, so let's talk about the ultimate last battle in Europe, the battle for Berlin, known as Sturm Berlin to the Russians. And this is actually a political battle as much as a military battle. One of the facts that remains is that at this time there is the Western armies, the Western allies, the Americans and the British advancing from the West, and the Russians are in a race for the capital. And Stalin has directed two of his marshals in a race for the capital. Zhukov and Konev both have shock armies, and they're going to punch their way into the German capital at all costs. And what actually happens is these actual armies even encounter one another, and their tanks take blue on blue. They fire at each other's and their tanks in their bid to win the race for the centre of Berlin. And ironically, at this stage of the war, we have the Soviets with advanced tactics, but in this race they use their tanks in street fighting, not in a dissimilar way to the tactics used by the Germans in Stalingrad, which was disastrous. The Soviet T-34s were vulnerable to the Panzerfaust. Panzerfaust, light handheld anti-tank weapons. The Germans were hiding in cellars, in destroyed buildings, and they're fired by these soldiers that just can't be seen. The tanks are unsupported by infantry, and a lot of them take losses. It meant unnecessary losses for the Red Army, and also for the 90,000 German defenders. The defenders really talking about old men, members of the Hitler Youth, and really the last SS remnants, the hardcore of the fascist regime that are going to fight to the death. But they still don't stand a chance against 1 million Red Army troops as the shock army closes in the capital. The civilian population bears a hell of a price, of course, but let's talk a little bit about the battle from the Russian side of view. In April of 1945, the battle is coming to a close. On the 30th of April, Hitler commits suicide with his mistress Eva Braun only hours after they were married. By the 2nd of May, the Reichstag, the old German parliament, had fallen. Berlin surrendered to Marshal Zhukov, who received the honour of being the conqueror of Berlin. The battle for Berlin had cost the Soviets 70,000 dead. Many of them had died because of the haste with which the campaign was conducted. The Battle for Berlin had brought to an end the bloodiest conflict in European history. There's no family in the Soviet Union, Poland or Germany where they didn't lose at least one close relative. In Britain we don't have the same scale of suffering, so when we look at Russia and Dame Pobedi, try and see things from their point of view where everyone has lost a relative. So as much as it's a day of victory, it is a day of remembrance for those that lost their lives in this incredible struggle. So the base kit was the Dragon Models Premium Edition T-34-85, but we had to make a lot of improvements because that kit is not representative of a flattened turret 1944. What we had to do was enhance the casting marks and replace the cupola. That side bulge on the turret needed to come off. That's for a motorised unit, sort of 1945 versions. Then we added lots of photo etch, as you can see, replacing the fenders, the fuel tanks. The rear grille is replaced. Also, we used a few other parts. There was 3 casting numbers added onto the rear turret. And also we distorted some of the photo etch to depict like light battle damage, such as on that zip box on the hull. There you can see that casting number. We started off with Mr. Servicer Primer all over. Then applied black green as a shadow coat. Initially I used 4BO ground shade, found it a bit dark. And then I used a selection of Mr. Colours and used quite a highlighting style. This is the unit we are actually depicting, and we want the Berlin operational stripes on there. And the decals were not that good, you can see they're all cracked, but we did get them to conform in the end. Painted up the road wheels, rubber road wheels. And painted up the details in satin blanks, such as those spare track links. Used some MIG odorless thinner, or any enamel thinner really, and oil paints for our weathering as always. Applying some shades and pin washes there. As usual, we'll tidy up with a flat, soft, clean brush. You can sort of see the streaking and the weathering just coming into play here. Here's the turret, everything's sort of coming a bit together now. You see the weathering effects are sort of more or less the base levels there. And we added some light chipping on this tank, and also on the auxiliary fuel tanks a little bit more deep rust. On the bottom of the hull we used a mixture of pigments and engine grime to get this sort of gritty feeling to it. Sort of coming together now, sort of basic assembly. You see all the chipping. Add a light rust wash, just very selectively. See it highlighting the details, and there's some of the chipping effects. On the exhaust we obviously want to depict that shadow rust, rusty effects. Note the detail there, that the missing fuel tank. For the tracks, metal tracks, but we actually sprayed them. Use this graphite agent to highlight details, and use graphite pencil to highlight the road wheels. Okay, so just prior to the final reveal, I'm just going to explain like the significance of the T90, T-34, and just go into some small details that weren't covered in the photographs. Yeah, so the historical link between these two vehicles is one thing, but there's also a technical link in that this flattened turret, Zavod 183 T-34-85, it was produced in what was the Kharkiv locomotive factory. It became known as factory number 183. And then that factory, after World War II, it became Zavod in Nizhny Tagil. And Nizhny Tagil is where the t-34 85s were produced, and this became the world's largest tank factory. And Ural Vagon Zavod also produced the T-90, so they are actually the same family, the same producer. So I wanted to have them together just to get that. We'll go on to the reveal now, and also I think we will feature this T-90 in an upcoming video.